Hey Dragon Slayers. So today's video is about why everyone doesn't need more fiber, part 3. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. Let's get started. Well, as usual, in this series that I'm covering through Dr. Berry's book, I recommend that you do as Dr. Berry does. Dr. Berry never goes out of his way to eat extra fiber. In fact, there are many days each week when he eats no fiber at all. He believes humans have eaten mostly fatty meat for thousands of years, and he tries to mimic this way of eating. He occasionally eats some vegetables, but what he eats seldom contains more than a few grams of fiber. Even though he eats very little fiber, if any, each day, he has no problems going to the restroom, no pain, no cramping of any kind. It might be that some people need some small amount of fiber in their diet to prevent constipation issues, but he is not one of them. Some other resources that Dr. Berry recommends you check out is this lie has reached such mythological proportions that it will take years for the average person to begin to understand the truth about added fiber. Big food makes billions of dollars from highly processed added fiber foods. So the manufacturers will certainly be pumping the brakes of paradigm shift as often as they can. Here's a couple of resources to help you start to make sense of this topic. There's a blog post that's linked in the description below. It's called A Carnivorous Diet, and it's by Amber O'Hearn on the Empirica website. And this was published in 2012. Amber O'Hearn breaks down the science and practical results of a fiber-free diet. The second thing Dr. Berry wants you to check out is a paper called Myths and Misconceptions About Chronic Constipation by Stephen A. Mollisner. This was published in 2005. The article discusses classic myths, aka lies, about what does and does not cause constipation. And lastly, there's a blog post called The World, or I guess technically it's a blog post, right? But it's a Facebook group essentially. It's called the World Carnivore Tribe. And I also have that link in the description below. It's a Facebook group that today has more than 74,000 members. Here you can read the stories of thousands of happy people who have been fiber free for years, and you can ask them your questions. So, I think that everyone's gut is different. And so I can only speak to my own gut because I've lived with it my whole life. I know that when I tried strict carnivore, I've probably mentioned this in videos past, I did it for maybe 6 to 8 weeks or so, and I didn't have any digestive issues at all, no constipation or anything. But the second I got off of carnivore, I did. It was a very hard transition period. I personally prefer to have a low carb omnivore diet. That is what works best for me. I don't necessarily promote carnivore or ketovore or anything, right? Like I believe that human beings can consume both fats, proteins, and excuse me, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, right? I think that we can have all three. Because I had diabetes, I definitely lower the carb. That makes sense. But I prefer to have a more flexible diet. So I eat extremely low carb most of the time. But if I want that slice of chocolate cake, I'll eat it. I generally don't do that more than once a week or so. But, I like having the flexibility. And that's what works for me. I have very little fiber in my diet. I do eat a mostly carnivorous diet with the occasional carb treat here or there in the form of sometimes rice or potatoes, or occasionally, like I said, a tasty treat. I love cheesecake. I probably have cheesecake at least once a month. But yeah, I do agree that it is a myth that you need fiber. You need to go out of your way to find fiber. I've been living like this for 4+ years and I've had no bowel distress whatsoever. I highly encourage you to experiment with yourself. I have friends, on the other hand, who do feel much better when they eat a lot of fiber. Granted, they are getting that fiber in the form of psyllium husk and whole vegetables and not grains. So we know that grains in general are inflammatory. But that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. And remember, guys, that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.